What's good, YouTube? DM Gaming here, guys. Oh man, what a day. So I've been doing a bunch of videos and I keep restarting because stuff keep coming to my mind. And I found myself going from more of a ranting type of mode to more of an understanding type of mode to more of a let's just get down to business type of mode. Long story short, man, I started out wanting to talk more about like the equipment stuff that's going on and then like the game being out on YouTube, basically like the entire game being out. And in the process, I dropped the equipment stuff in the next video, and I was talking more about the whole stuff being on YouTube. And then getting into that, it led me to where I'm at now. Like, what do I bring to the table for this community? Because, I see on one hand the game is out. From the gaming standpoint, seeing the full game, everything's out there on YouTube. It's cool. It's a blessing and a curse. Like you get to see everything. It's cool, but then it sucks because there's no element of surprise. Uh, then from the content creator standpoint, I'm seeing all of these guys. I'm like, man, there's a crap ton of guys in this creator network that got this game early and get to make footage. And it's like, damn, I'm playing from behind. That sucks. You know, I've applied. I've applied like last year to get into it. But, I know the waiting list is long. They probably aren't even accepting people right now until somebody drops out or something to that effect. I don't know. But I'm like, dang, I want to be a part, from a content creator standpoint. So I'm not behind in content. But then as I'm watching the content, I'm like, I'm not really seeing the type of content that I do being utilized. And so, it made me wonder, like, dang, what do I bring to the table? And, I look at a Bordeaux. What does Bordeaux bring to the table? Your dynasty mode. He's your calm, relaxing type playthrough kind of guy. QJB is your road to glory, hype, energy, high energy kind of guy. Eric Rayweather is your informative kind of guy. He's going to give you information and stuff like that. Good game, bro. Kind of like the same deal a little bit. I don't see a lot of guys doing a bunch of like the X's and the O's. And I was like, dang, that's really kind of what we do well. We do a good job of explaining the game from a coach's standpoint. And, my expertise, I've played college football. My defensive back coach was a former safeties coach for Nick Saban. He ended up being a defensive coordinator at UCF or USF. Now he's athletic director for a high school in Alabama, but I've learned a lot from him. I've played with guys that have went to the NFL. I've played semi-pro with guys who were formerly in the NFL. And then coaching wise, I have a coaching background as well. Coaching varsity football for 6 years? 6, 7 years, It's like I see the game differently than a Bordeaux, than a Eric Rayweather, than a Good Game Bro, than a QJB. You know what I'm saying? And I got to watching QJB's content, and it's like, dang, I found myself saying like, dang, this game still doesn't understand what it means to play corner because I'm playing corner on one side of the field. They throw a touchdown pass to the other corner on the other corner side of the field, and the game gives you a -50 because the defense scored a touchdown. It's like, that is so stupid because that corner had nothing to do with that touchdown pass being made. And it's like, so the game still doesn't get it, And then seeing QJB, how he plays, he may have hook the curl coverage and he'll walk down and blitz between the linebackers. And he'll blitz between the tackles. Or he'll cover the flats instead of covering his zone. And it's like, while every now and then he'll get an interception from it, or he'll get a sack from it, or a tackle for a loss from it. And people are, oh, that's great, he made a play. From a coach's standpoint, a player like that wouldn't be on the field. Simply because they're not doing their assignments. And in real life, a team is going to see that and they're going to eat that side alive. But the game doesn't do that because the game logically doesn't understand what a cornerback is really supposed to be doing. So I'm wondering, all of that stuff led me to say, it led me to find what I bring to the table. And what I bring to the table is coaching experience and player experience and knowledge of the X's and O's. Now, do I know everything? Absolutely not. You know what I'm saying? But I know a lot. I know football from beyond the point of a fan of the game. You know what I'm saying? I know it from a player and from a coach. And so I was like, you know what? Let's just get into that. Let's just do what we do best and make this content. So today, guys, we're going to start talking a little bit defense. We're going to talk a little bit of playbook. It could lead into some other stuff playbook wise, but we're going to start here. By the way, and I did this last year, and I think a lot of y'all liked it because it helps people to understand the game. The better that they get making these games, the more you're going to need to understand X's and O's to be successful in this game. A lot of people talked about the blocking last year, that the blocking was bad, blah, 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 blah. Part of it was people don't know how to run the football. People just get on the sprint button. You can't do that. You touch that sprint button when you behind the line of scrimmage. I don't know why, but the defense is going to get off of their blocks quicker. Also, you need to learn how to let your runs develop. If you're running a zone run, you don't need to be on the sprint button as a running back because there's zone blocking either left or right, which means the holes are going to shift left or right, and you got to find a certain lane. Inside zone don't mean I got to hit the A gap. It just means the way that their zone blocking is one of those inside gaps are going to be open or should be open. You know, outside zone, off tackle, dive, sweep, they all operate very differently. You know what I'm saying? And I see too often people get the ball and they running in like that infamous play that people are talking, oh, the lineman stops in the middle and blah, 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 blah. Like, I've never seen a lineman stop. Then you ain't ever watched football. But the problem wasn't the lineman. The problem was the person controlling the running back. He ran into the back of that offensive lineman. So it's stuff like that, you know, understanding football. Like I said, you can go and check these out. These are more geared towards last year's playbooks. This year, I do have an access football, collegefootball.gg. They have a playbook tool in here. They also have the player abilities, the coaching abilities, and stuff like that in there. They even have and this is not a plug for them. They're not getting paid from them or nothing. A coach builder where you can see how you would build out your coach and stuff like that. But what I want to talk about is the defensive stuff. Like Kyle messaged me earlier and he was like, hey, you know, what's a mic? Is that a middle linebacker? And he was like, I know that might be a dumb question. I don't know. You know, it's like, nah, dude, it ain't a dumb question. I don't look at that as a dumb question because some people don't know. And they change these terms so often, which mic has been a universal term for a while, but I'm just giving you an example. For example, edge. They have right edge and left edge. At first, it was just called right end and left end. Now it's right edge and left edge. And before that, it was rush and anchor, which all serve completely different purposes. But because the game evolves and these positions evolve, they got to have a name to kind of match that. So, yeah, there's a difference, guys, between a Sam linebacker and a Will linebacker, you know, because people are going to see these names in the game and they're going to think, oh, that's just outside linebacker. It's way deeper than that. Your Sam linebacker plays to the strong side of the field or to the strength. If they call strong left, which means the offensive is lined up, probably tight ends to the left side of the field. The strength of the offense is to the left of the defense. They're going to call left, 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 left. So that Sam backer is always going to go to the strength. Why? Because most teams for the most part, if they're going to run the ball, it's going to be to the strong side of the offense. Doesn't mean the strong side of the field. That's two different things because you can be on the left hash and you can still put your strength to the boundary at that point. But your Sam backer, for example, he's going to be a guy that is probably your best tackling linebacker. Okay. He's good at tackling. He's good at getting to the ball and making a tackle, setting the edge and things like that. Your will linebacker is going to be your more athletic linebacker because a lot of times he's playing to the weak side of the offense, which you're going to get your counters, your misdirections, and then pass plays tend to hit to the weak side of the offenses and stuff like that. So this is a backer who can still tackle. You know, he's a linebacker. Obviously, he can hit, but he's really better. I would say he's a more speedier guy. He's a more coverage type guy. And then your Mike backer is kind of a jack of all trades. He can cover. He can stop the run. This is the best linebacker you have is going to be your Mike backer. He's going to be the smartest guy on the field a lot of times in the backer department and stuff like that. And your edge rushers really work the same way. Before, like I said, it was called anchor and rush because your rush would be your most athletic end and your anchor would be your more run stopping type defensive end. Not going to give you the best pass rush, but he's good at setting an edge and holding it down in the run game. Now they just have right edge and left edge because defensive ends are kind of both the same. You need a good pass rushing end, as a lot of teams don't tend to run the ball to the outside. They tend to run the ball between the tackles and guards. So understanding that, field and boundary corner. Your boundary corner is going to be more or less your run stopping corner. They play to the boundary, the short side of the field. There's not as much field for them to work with. Okay, so it's not your fastest, most athletic corner. That's the one that you're going to want to put to the field. Why? Because a lot of times they're on an island. They're stretched. They're separated from the rest of the defense because the ball is to the boundary. And by what boundary means is if the ball is on the left hash, I'm going into the end zone. The field is going to be everything to the right of the left hash, which, as you know from football, that's a lot of field. Your boundary is going to be anything from the left hash to the sideline, which is going to be a lot shorter. So your boundary corner is better at your run stop, run fits. They're not as athletic and good in space, so they have more guys around them to help, as opposed to your boundary corner being the opposite of that. They're better in space. They're a lot more athletic. You know what I'm saying? Maybe not as good at stopping the run because, you know, your field corners, that's when teams tend to take a shot. They stretch you out there on the island by yourself. So you got to be able to cover. All right. So just stuff like that, bringing elements like that to the table and talking about things like that. So one thing I want to look at today is defensively, your 3-3-5. This resource does have some of the new defenses in here, the 2-4 defenses out of the nickel and stuff like that. But just kind of going over this. So I like to do 3-3-5 type. If I have an athletic defense, I have athletic linebackers. I don't have as much depth and strength in the lineman category, then I'm going to look at the linebackers here. I'm going to look at a 3-3-5 tight. All right. So the difference between a 3-3-5 and a 3-3-5 tight is that you're going to look at in a 3-3-5, your defensive ends are going to be lined up outside of the guards. I mean, the tackles. I'm sorry. They're going to be lined up on the outside shade of the tackles. Okay. The reason why is because they want to force everything inside to the backers. All right. Now in a 3-3-5 tight, they basically take those same defensive ends and they're going to either line them head up on the outside tackles or they're going to line them inside shade of the tackles. And the reason why is because they have more speed on the outside. They want to stop you from running inside and force everything outside to a more athletic tackling secondary and a more athletic linebacking core. Okay, so that's why I like to run it. You just got to base y'all all of this. I'm telling you now, you need to look at the teams that you have and look at the type of personnel that you have. And if you want me to do that, hey, let me know in the comment section down below. DM, I plan on playing with this team. Can you tell me what would be the best defense to run? You know, or I want to run this defense. What type of, that would be the better question. I want to run this type of scheme. What would be the personnel that I would need? Because the teams already right now in the game have their own playbooks set up to the skill positions that they have, if that makes sense. So Texas is running a defense that fits the personnel that they have. So I don't want to say, let me know what team you have and what, you know, I'll let you know what scheme to run. No. Let me know what scheme you want to run, and I'm going to tell you the personnel that you need to have to run that scheme. Because I like to run a veer and shoot. And every team is not built for the veer and shoot. Does that make sense? So looking at the defenses here, 3-3-5 tight, that's what I like. We'll talk about that first. It's based out of the 3-4 defense, okay, or a 3-3-5, which means that first number always pertains to your lineman. The second number pertains to your linebackers. And if there is a last number, it pertains to the secondary. And that is important. And I'm going to talk about that here right now. So 3-3-5 means I have 3 down linemen. I normally 2 edge rushers and a defensive tackle. I have 3 linebackers, a Mike, a Sam, and a Will. And then I have the 5 stands for 5 secondary backs. Okay. And that's important. Why? Because the very first formation in here is a 3-4. All right. So now in that 3-3-5 set, I'm going to sub out one of my secondary backs and I'm going to add an extra linebacker. Still 3 down linemen. Okay. 3-3-5, like I said, we talked about that. Your nickel is essentially, the nickel is your, well, it can be a 3-3-5. Nickel, it could be a 4-2-5. Because in your nickel, what you're doing is nickel, you're going to have 5 secondary backs. You're going to have 5 secondary backs. And your fifth one is what they call a nickel back. That's the whole name of the formation. I'm bringing in what they used to call a nickel. Now they call it a slot corner. It's one of your secondary backs who's good at stopping the run, but also good at coverage. So it ain't necessarily a corner that plays that position. It could be one of your safeties as well. It just tends to be a corner because your corners are better at coverage and they tend to have to cover. You'll go to a nickel if I have a gadget receiver that I tend to line up in the slot that's really good. Then you'll run a nickel because it's going to put a cornerback on that guy. It's going to put somebody that can cover but still decent stopping the run. Does that make sense? And so that's where you see these new formations here. Your 2-4 formations, which is what? 2 down linemen, 4 linebackers. Okay. So how many secondary guys are we going to have? If it's 2 down linemen and 4, that's 6. Okay. So that means I'm still going to have 5 secondary backs. All right. And then you have your 3-3, double mug, 3-3 over. And then your dime, which is your pass defense coverage. And then prevent, which is end of the game. You're trying to keep them from scoring deep or scoring before the half. All right. So your 3-4, they actually have a 3-4 tight, which is the same thing. 3-4, I have 3 down linemen. Okay, I'm going to have 4 linebackers in the game, and then that's going to leave me with 4 secondary backs. Tight means that on that defensive line front, those 3 down linemen, your outside defensive ends are going to be most of the time head up on the tackles. I know you're looking at this formation and you're saying, DM, what are you talking about? There's 5 down linemen. No, it's not. 3 down linemen. If you look at personnel on this, you're going to have 3 linemen, a defensive tackle, a right edge, and a left edge. A left edge and a right edge. These 2 guys right here are your outside backers. These 2 are your interior backers. So personnel-wise, if you're trying to personnel this, you could essentially put 2 middle linebackers in the game, and then you could have a Sam and a Will. Or you can have a Mike, a Sam, and have 2 wheel linebackers. It's really up to you because the purpose, I'm going to say this, the purpose of these 2 walk down backers, okay, they're just providing more rush off of the edge, okay? Because you got to remember, this is the tight defense, which means your defensive ends right here, okay, they are going to be head up on the tackles essentially. So it's going to be pretty wide gaps right here. Their job is to do what? Spill everything to the outside. Stop stuff from the inside, spill it to the outside backers. So you're going to want some guys that are athletic out here. Because too, as you can see, like in this cover 3 match, sometimes they're going to have to cover that curl to flats right there. All right? So this isn't a defensive end. This is a linebacker. So your wheel linebackers, remember I told you your wheels tend to be the better ones in coverage. They tend to be your more athletic linebackers speed-wise. So those are the guys that you're going to want there. You can even see here, same thing. They go to a curl to flats or a deeper flat right there. You're going to lose some of those guys in coverage every now and then, depending on what play you're running. They're going to have to drop. Even right here, cover 4 drop, you got both of them dropping. So personnel-wise, you're going to need put your most athletic coverage corners out here. And linebackers. And this is really cool this year because you have what? Formation subs. That's why I'm telling you to do that. The game last year, you wouldn't have been able to do that. This year, formation subs, you can go into this particular defensive set and say, I want some fast guys right here who can cover too. You know what I'm saying? And let's say I don't have a whole bunch of depth at linebacker, but I got a load of depth at safety. And I have some safeties that are good at the run, but hey, you can go and put your safeties right there if the game so lets you, which it should. All right. But that's the 3-4 type. 3 down linemen, okay? My 2 edges and my defensive tackle. And then my 4 linebackers right there, boom, boom, boom. And then I have 4 guys in coverage. All right. What is the 3-4 tight good for? Honestly, it's good against a spread offense or something like Texas runs. It's good against a pro style offense because you have your run support, but then you also have your pass support as well. And then it's going to give you some different looks. Like if you look at the cover 3 sky, from the standpoint of this, it's going to say, oh, look, they're backed off. They're in the cover 4. They're boom, boom right there. But the corner's dropping, the safety's coming down on here, and then you got this guy dropping. It's going to add some confusion from the line of scrimmage and post snap as well. So it's going to throw off the offense a little bit. All right, going back to the 3-4, the 3-3-5 tight. So you have your base defense, which is your 3-3-5. You have your mint, your overflex, your penny, and your split. So looking at the mint, okay, remember, it's a 3-3-5. Oh, wait a minute. That looks like there's 4 down linemen. It's not. What they've done is they've taken one of the backers and they've walked them down. Maybe a stand-up end. They could be in a 3-point, hand in the ground kind of position. I don't know. I'd have to see it. But basically, they've taken one of the linebackers from the 3 and they moved him down onto the line of scrimmage, okay? You still going to have your traditional 3 down linemen, your defensive tackle, and your 2 ends. So what this now creates is more speed off of the edge while maintaining that whole look in the secondary, where with 5 guys in the secondary and 2 of your linebackers there. Personnel wise, treat it just like you would the 3-4. Hey, I want a more athletic guy down there on the line of scrimmage because the whole goal is for him to be able to create pressure. And then as you can see in like your overload 3 press right here, that person is gonna have to be able to drop in coverage. So I don't want to put another defensive end right there. I don't want to put a D tackle right there. I don't want to put a middle linebacker. I would want my weak side backer to be able to be the guy to drop down right there. Okay, personnel wise, and this is your 3-3-5 mint. So going back to the 3-3-5, and now we have the overflex. All right, same type of situation. All right, you bringing down a linebacker. All right, and you're putting him down here with the lineman. Now, one thing I want you to look at here that's different than the 3-3-5 mint is you have a larger split right here between that defensive end and this outside backer. Okay, if I go back here to the mint, you don't see that wide of a gap. Okay, the splits are a lot closer. All right, but going here to the overflex, then you're going to see that gap, that split is a lot wider. Okay, so there is separation there on that line of scrimmage. And what that does is it's going to force whatever defensive tackle or tight end that's out here on that side, they're going to have to compensate for that and come out further. And then generally, guys, you're going to have a faster lineman that's going to be faster and be able, or a faster linebacker that's going to be able to get to the ball a lot quicker. Does that make sense? You want to stretch, you want him to have to come out further, and then you create a one-on-one situation. You're limiting double teams, and you're pitting your guy against his, who most of the time, if this is an outside backer, it's going to be a lot quicker to be able to beat that one-on-one and get to the ball. Okay, it changes how the defense sees things. Okay. It's purely to create pressure, because as you can see here, they're not dropping that guy back in coverage, but it's still a 3-3-5, 3 down linemen, 1, 2, 3, 5, 3 backers, 1, 2, 3, 5 secondary backs, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. Going over to the penny set. The penny set. Now I'm walking down out of those 3 linebackers that I have. I'm walking 2 of them down. So now it looks like I have a 5-man front, but I don't. I still have my 3, 1, 2, 3, my 2 edge, my defensive tackle. Now I'm walking down my Sam and my Will. But once again, this is kind of like that 3-4. If you want a formation sub this to where these are your 2 Will linebackers, by all means, you can do that, because it goes back to that same situation where these guys are being able to be dropped back in coverage. Still keep your mic right there. All right. But you can game plan that to how you want. You can put those guys on the edge and do whatever you want. If you want to put your Sam there, put your Sam there. That doesn't matter. Me personally, I'm going to put my most athletic linebackers to be the ones on the outside. And let's say you have tremendous depth at your rush, at your right edge and your left edge. Hey, if you got 4 guys that are GoDaddies, and you trying to get them guys in the game to get that playing time so you can keep them on your team, by all means, you can formation sub them into the game at these positions. You know what I'm saying? Just be mindful that there are certain plays like this right here, cover 4 quarters, where one of those guys are going to have to drop back into coverage. So are they quick enough and athletic enough to be able to drop into coverage back there? You know, this is not your flats. This is a curl to flats, which is pretty wide. It's out there. So you're going to have somebody with some speed to be able to get out there and cover that. And if you run a cover 4 out of this, then you're going to have both of those guys having to drop. You get what I'm saying? So be mindful of that from a personnel standpoint. All right. And then you have your 3-3-5 split. Okay. And this is a more balanced set. It looks like a 4-4 on the surface, because you're walking down your two safeties. Okay. Your two safeties are walking down here. So number one, you take one of your backers and you're putting them on the line of scrimmage. Could be in a stand-up, could be in a hands in the ground. But generally, if you look back at your 3-3-5, you had a nickel here, a walk down safety, but you had two safeties up top. Let's go back and look at that real quick. Go back to, let's say, the mint. Okay. You have those two safeties on the roof. Okay. In the split, you're bringing one of those safeties down into the box. Okay. So this is for those teams where they're a spread team. Yes, because 3-3-5 is made to stop a spread offense. But let's say they bring in a tight end formation with an H-back. You know, they're loading the box on their end. You can load the box on your end. And you still got your coverages in here. But understand, you look at the type of coverages. Cover 1, cover 3. Who's going to do that? The corners and the safety is going to create the cover 3. Why? Because you want to keep that other guy in the box. Cover 3, same thing. You're not seeing a cover 4 because you're not able to do a cover 4 because that other safety is walked down into the box, okay? So now it's giving the illusion of a 4-4 defense when it's not a 4-4 personnel, okay? That's the difference. You might say, why don't they just call it a 4-4? Because 4-4 is 4 down linemen, 4 backers. This is not 4 down linemen. This is three linemen and 3 backers, 5 secondary backs. The personnel is different. Does that make sense? And you want to use this against teams that are running spread, but like a power spread. Okay, they run spread, but they run power. They like to run the ball a lot out of the spread formation. Now you're loading the box, okay, and you're able to stop the run. And you still got your coverages over the top. You know what I'm saying? So understand personnel, understand what these things are doing. If I'm in a game and they're starting to pack the box and running the ball, hey, go 3-3-5 split and you good to go. You're walking down a safety to help stop the run. All right. Now the nickel stuff is, some of this is new. You got 2-4 load, 2-4 load mug, and 2-4 single load. So in the 2-4, what do we say that first number represents? That first number is going to represent your walk down lineman. It's going, not your walk down lineman. It's going to represent your lineman. So in the 2-4 load, you have how many linemen? 2. How many backers? 4. Which is going to leave you how many secondary backs? 5. Okay. Oh, DM, there's 4 down linemen. No, they're not all linemen. Okay. You're only going to have 2 linemen. These other 2 guys are going to be outside backers. And then, like I said, personnel-wise, you may have 2 middle backers right here. You may have a Mike and a Sam right here, which is your middle and your strong side backer. Okay, that's personnel is really going to be based on you and the team. You just have to see how it is in the game. Okay, but you're only going to have 2 down linemen. Now, what those linemen are going to be, I couldn't tell you. If I were a guessing man, I would say in that 2-4, you're going to have 2 defensive tackles. Okay, the 2-4 is, the nickel is a more of a kind of a pass stopping type of defense. So, you want integrity between the tackles. So, me personally, I would like to have, especially if I have 2 more athletic type defensive tackles, is having those defensive tackles in there. But if you're wanting to create more of a pass rush, which if you're looking at these, you see exactly that. You don't see a lot of slanting. You see a lot of more going to the ball type of action from the defensive front. Then, yeah, you can put 2 of your rush. You can have your right and left rush in there. I don't recommend it simply because one of these guys are going to be shaded on the center. So, at best, you can have a defensive tackle, but that other position could be your right edge or your left edge. Now, the backers that are in here, it kind of goes back to the when we looked at was it the mint? No, it wasn't the mint. It was the split or the overflex. Remember that gap that we saw right here in the overflex? Okay, this is very similar in the 2-4 load. They're loading one side of the field. Okay, they're loading up that middle right there, because even look here, my gaps between these two defensive linemen is different. These gaps are a lot tighter. Okay, more than likely, guys, they are loading that A gap. These guys are lined up in the A gaps and they are humdigging it. Okay, and then these two, but look at the spacing between the interior lineman in this backer right here. All right, and then it's an even greater gap split on this side. Okay, so if you have one of those offenses, or like me, y'all notice when I played against in the Baylor Dynasty, how I would shift to the strength. I would shift opposite the side of the running back. If the running back was on the right, I would shift my lineman opposite. This kind of creates that same effect without having to actually shift. Okay, I would personally use this to do that. Like if my running back was on the left over here, I would line up in this and have them loading that opposite side of where that running back is at. You know what I'm saying? And it's all done for purpose. Okay, I want to create a one-on-one situation with one of those offensive linemen. They are not going to be able to come out here and double team this guy, because it is going to create a huge gap and that backer can get through. This is to create a one-on-one situation. I want to load this side of the field and create a one-on-one backside on the lineman on that front. I will say it ain't a lineman, because this is going to be one of your backers or possibly one of your defensive ends. But you have two different types of gaps. I'm loading the inside, okay, and I'm leaving those outside gaps really, really wide open. Really wide open, okay? This would be something good to do. Let's say if this is to the field, okay? Stretching the field, loading the boundary. If I got a team that wants to run heavy to the boundary, I want to load that boundary side, leave that field side open. But this is going to be really, really fun to do. Really, really fun to do. I can't wait to see how that works out in person. 2-4 load mug. Okay, remember the mug? Okay, I'm basically bringing another linebacker down. Okay, 2-4, 2 down linemen, 1-2. Okay, those are my interior guys. All right, and then as you can see, it's represented by a circle, really, guys. But you're bringing that other linebacker down. Okay. And you say, okay, well, if the circle is the linebackers, then all these squares would be down linemen. No, that's not accurate. That's not accurate. All it's showing you is that they went from the original 2-4 load, okay, with these backers here, and they're bringing them down, okay? What this tells you is that these guys' hands are going to be down. They're not going to be stand up, okay? In the 2-4 load, in the 2-4 mug, he's down on the line of scrimmage, but he's probably standing up. He's probably not hands in the ground. As you can tell, he's dropping back in coverage and stuff like that, okay? But basically, you're taking one of your linebackers and you're putting them down on the line of scrimmage. You still only have 2 linemen in the game. The rest are linebackers, okay? Same kind of spacing type. The spacing is a little bit different. You're still going to be tight in here by the tackles, and then you're going to kind of spread out a little bit. This walk down backer is going to be really tight to this other outside backer. So you're creating you're creating a lot of issues for the offensive linemen when they come out and they have to look at this. And then, like I said, you're still going to have kind of like that one-on-one type situation out here on the edge. But that's your mug. You're bringing down another backer. Okay. And as you can see, this other backer, this isn't the middle of the field. They're going to be cheated. They're going to be loaded one side or the other. So make sure you're paying attention to that. 2-4 single mug. Okay. Single mug is still a 2-4. All right. You still going to bring down those other linemen. You still basically only have one backer, but look at his positioning. When we looked at the 2-4, the one that we just looked in, the 2-4 load mug, he was shifted more on these formations to the left. On the single mug, he's going to be shifted more to the right, okay? And then you can see it's giving you some more different coverages. You can see here in the cover 6, blitz text 3 and stuff. This middle guy, he's walked down, okay? So they're shifting what that defensive line looks like. In the 2-4 load mug, there's no circle. These guys are hands in the ground right here. In the single mug, he's stand up right here. He's walked down, but he's in a stand up position so that he can drop back into coverage if he needs be. We're shifting this other backer from the left side to the right side. And then your defensive line is a lot more balanced. There's not as many gaps and stuff. It looks a little bit different than your load mug. As you can tell, they're loading that side of the field. Look at the gap splits right here. the splits right there by the defensive lineman, they're a more balanced front right here. Okay, you just have a guy walk down, and then your other backer, like I said, is walked over. Essentially, you just walk that middle backer down from the left side, and then he backs up. It just depends personnel wise. All right. And then, of course, you have your 3-3 double mug, which we've had that in the game. That's nothing new. All the circle, once again, means is that these guys are not hands in the ground. Doesn't mean that they're like these guys on the outside. These are still going to be backers, but they're hands in the ground. That's what the square means, hands in the ground, okay? Circle means they're stand up. They're walk down, but they're not in a 3-point or a 4-point stance, okay? And we've had this in the game, so we know what that looks like, and we know what that is. And then you have your 3-3 over, okay? 3 down linemen, okay? 1, 2, possibly 3. 3 backers, 1, 2, 3, over, okay? They're in the over front, all right? So understanding these things is going to help you a lot personnel-wise. I love the 3-3-5 tight, and this particular defense of Playbook is going to be really, really cool because now, like I said, they're adding that 2-4 load into the game, which is a new defensive front. Cool thing that I like to see in this resource as well is that if you scroll down to the bottom, it tells you all the playbooks that have the 2-4 load mug in it. Okay. And then if you click on a specific play, let's say cover 4-6, it sometimes it'll tell you what teams have this actual play in their playbook. Okay. But the game, I guess this resource doesn't do that simply because defense isn't as spread out as offense. And so basically any team that has these formations is going to have this particular play. Does that make sense? If I go to the offensive side of the ball, let's go to the veer and shoot, for example, and I go to my favorite formation out of that, which is the wide stack. If I go down, you're going to see all the teams that have this formation in their playbooks, which means they may not be based in a veer and shoot, but they have veer and shoot elements in their playbook. Ole Miss is not a veer and shoot style offensive team if you look at their gun formations, okay, but stack Y flex, see, that's not a veer and shoot formation, but when you start to see wide stack, that's a variation. It means they have the variation of the veer and shoot in there. So, like I said, 3-3-5 tight, I'm really interested in, and I can't wait to see how it works out in game. I'm excited personnel-wise. If you plan on running it, let me know. If you want to know personnel, if you want a further breakdown of personnel that you want to see for a specific scheme that you want to do, let me know in the comment section down below. Guys, that's all I got for right now. Till next time, thanks for watching. Peace.